The single greatest skill that you can develop to save your marriage is not your ability to communicate with her or even understand her emotions. It is simply your ability to have a stronger frame than her. And the reason she doesn't trust your changes yet isn't because she doesn't believe you. It's because your frame is weaker than hers. That's why in today's video, I will teach you to develop a rock solid foundational frame to influence and persuade her more consistently. And then I'll show you the 4 skills that you must take in order for her to trust you again. And all of this will not only convince her you've changed, but she will fall even more deeply in love than ever before. And I'm going to back all this using Mike's story. When Mike's wife came to him, she didn't say that she wasn't in love anymore, or she didn't mention divorce like most wives do when they want out. She actually said something more painful than both of those. She said, I think we'd be a better fit for other people.
She was, I think we'd be happier with other people. So she didn't say the D word exactly, but she's like, I think we'd be happier with other people.
Now that cut Mike deep into the core. And that's because in Mike's mind, that was a deep, dark thought he had, that somehow he wasn't good enough for her and there's a better man out there for her, even after all the years of marriage. And so for Mike, his worst fears came true. Now he did something that a lot of men don't. He sought out help. He tried therapy. He read No Mr. Nice Guy. He joined one of Dr. Glover's programs.
You know, it was like the worst night ever, just separated, was doing social media, looking like, okay, how can I save my marriage? How can I do this? Probably watched about 10 to 15 of your videos because it just popped up. And I really liked what I saw versus like some of the others where they're like, they barely give you anything. Like, here's a little goldfish, call us and pay, thousands of dollars. Whereas you're like, here's more specific steps you can do. And it gave me more to go off of. And then I looked at the website. I thought, yeah, this looks legit. This is exactly what I've been looking for.
But at the end of the day, he thought something was missing. And that's when he found our videos.
She came up to me and said, I want to reconcile. I want to fix things. I want to move forward with just you. I want to be exclusive with you.
Now, there are a lot of lessons Mike learned throughout the program that I will show you how to see at the end of this video. But for now, I want you to focus on how he actually convinced his wife that his changes were real. In preparation for this video, I actually asked him this specific question, if she didn't believe his changes at first.
She initially would call me, I was being manipulative to her and the kids. Because before, we always talk about fight, flight, or freeze. I call a fourth one fawning, not the, from the Chronicles of Narnia fawn, but like, oh, I'm desperately trying to get you back. I was the fawn prince. I was like, I got to get you back. I got to do this. And it never worked. So she was expecting that initially, right? No, you're just trying to manipulate me to get me back.
Now, again, I'm going to show you those 4 key skills that Mike used at the end of this video that completely made his stream super strong and convinced his wife to see his changes. But first, we have to address the issue about why your wife doesn't even trust your changes are real in the first place. And we're going to start by using some cognitive and emotional empathy for your wife. One of the most profound exercises that I put into this whole entire program that's actually really recent, and an update we did for the program, was I sat down one day and I did a mental inventory of my whole entire relationship with my partner. And I was going through all the moments of conflict that we had. But there was a voice that told me, say, yes, Josh, do this. But this time, put yourself in her perspective. See at the receiving end of your actions and how it feels. Imagine how it is to be her and know all the emotions she experienced, all the tears she cried, and put yourself in her position. And when I deeply did that visualization exercise, I was sitting in the sauna here in the apartment complex that I live in, and I started crying deeply because I realized all the actual pain that she had. You see, one thing that is really hard for a lot of men that prevents them from growing and getting their wife back is that your ego actually protects you by not having other people's perspectives in mind. It takes a lot of mental energy to sit there, pause, and consider how someone else actually feels on the receiving end of your actions. And it is such a protection mechanism for you to think to yourself, to dismiss that you're not a bad person. Well, you didn't mean to do it that way. But the intentions do not matter as much as the result or the actions or the feelings that she has based on your actions. If you were to accidentally get in a car accident with someone and you hurt that person really bad and you put them in a wheelchair for the best of your life and you said, well, it was an accident, I didn't mean to. Do you think the person in the wheelchair gives a damn? No, they're in a wheelchair. And I know that's an extreme example to prove this point, but it's really relevant here. Okay, your actions, whether you intended to or not, over the years compounded, made her feel unseen, unheard, unvalidated, not loved, not connected, things she needs to feel safe. And I don't say this to drive a knife into your heart, to make you feel worse than you already are, but you need to have this perspective. It all starts with this empathy, because without actually feeling the way she actually felt, you will not have the humility to say, I do need to work on myself. There are things for me to change. And if you don't start there, you'll never get her back. All right, so let's look at the biggest mistake you can make when she tests you and says your changes aren't real. The way you're going to look at this is pretty simple. It's almost formulaic and scientific. And so you can treat this very logically in how to actually show up to her correctly. So a stimulus happens. Anything that's outside of yourself in the environment is a stimulus that then affects us. For whatever reason, she's having a hard day. You say a trigger word. She watches some reel, I know, it causes her to be triggered, and she comes at you. She feels disconnected from you and from herself. When a woman feels disconnected, she will seek connection even through negative means. This is known as a test that we talk a lot about on this channel. I'll give you a massive testing video at the end of this one, by the way. So the test in this specific context is that she says, you know what? Your changes aren't real. Go find another woman. Now, what most men will do here is that they'll start trying to prove themselves. They'll say, no, I joined this program. I'm watching this guy's YouTube videos. I'm learning a lot and I'm actually making these changes. How do you not see them? I set these goals. They start trying to prove themselves. And the paradox about proving is the more you try to show your value, inherently you're subcommunicating that you're not valuable. Men also get defensive or they get emotionally reactive. Now, all of those three responses are considered low value in her mind, right? It is childlike energy, okay? It is not holding masculine strength that she responds to positively. However, an example of how to respond to a test is our agree and amplify framework. Now, I will show you what this looks like. So she comes to you and says, your changes aren't real. Go find another woman. There's a lot of ways to respond. And again, the testing video at the end of this one will show you. But the agree and amplify is simply agreeing and amplifying with her. Now, you can do this through a humorous lens if you feel confident enough to, and humor is actually the best way to dispel her negative emotions, but you can also simply just logically agree and amplify. You would say, you're right, I have a lot of changes that I need to make. I'm just starting and I'm never going to stop. I'm never going to go back to the man that I once was. I don't expect you to believe me, but I'm doing this for myself because I do want to be a better man, and I've seen how I've not shown up over the years. So you're taking what she says and you're just adding fuel to her fire. Paradoxically, when you do that, most often she won't lay into you. Now, the thing is, if this is the first time you're using this skill, she actually is going to double down just to see if you actually truly believe that. However, if you do agree and amplify with her, it shows that you're not trying to prove yourself. You are high value. You're going to make these changes, and therefore she's going to be able to trust you again. So now let's talk about how to have a strong frame like I talked about. What separates me from you? Other than me, having a YouTube channel, which we most likely don't, in the way we look and the names, all these external things. Also, we have internal changes within ourselves. But what are those internal differences that you and I have from each other? I'm sure we actually have a lot in common, but there are some differences in our beliefs, in our values, in our boundaries, in our emotional schemes, or the way we respond emotionally to certain situations. And when life happens to us, and when your wife speaks to you, let's say I was in a relationship and you were in a relationship, and both of our partners said the same exact criticism, I would probably respond differently emotionally in my words, in the way I show up, in my nonverbals, and how I perceive her pain than you. And this is not meaning that you're less than. This is a skill that I had to develop, and no one really teaches this. But because I've learned how to respond correctly, I know how to meet her needs. And the thing is, you were given certain beliefs about yourself, about women, about love, about marriage, about needs, about all these things that were helpful when the time you learned those things. But in your current situation with your wife, they've only been backfiring. When life happens to us, when we speak to our partner, we feel, think, and act according to these internal qualities. All these things combined constitute your frame, okay? The values, the boundaries, everything, all right? Now, you cannot see it, but you can sure feel people's frames in others, the way they perceive the world, how they interact with the same situation completely differently. Now, a man with a weak frame, he's constantly seeking validation. He needs his wife's approval through her words, her mood, to determine how he should feel about himself. He is reactive, molding who he is to get what he thinks he needs because he doesn't feel good enough himself. And that's the core of it all, not feeling good enough yourself. However, a man with a strong frame operates from an unshakable sense of self. He knows who he is and what he stands for, and he holds true to that no matter what, even if it pisses off his wife. You are good with you. That is what a strong man says to himself. Now, why is this so important for you to have a stronger frame than your wife? Well, look, man, from a biological imperative, women are wired to test the strength of the man that they're with. They need to know that they can feel safe around him, and they can't always rely on the external world to see that. Sometimes they need to test him themselves to make sure he is strong moment by moment. So if your frame is weaker than hers, you're looking to her for validation, for approval, and you are bending yourself for her. She unconsciously feels that weakness, and she loses respect and attraction. There's no polarity. When a woman feels like she has to be stronger than the man, all attraction dies, not because she wants to be weak, but because she wants to feel safe, to be feminine, okay? Now, the stronger frame doesn't mean that you dominate her. Okay, I want to put that out there. A lot of guys get it twisted. It means you provide a stable foundation that allows her to trust and surrender. Surrender, relax, go into a feminine energy, feel seen, feel heard, just feel in the moment with you. That leads to connection, okay? Now let's talk about how to develop your frame to be rock solid like Mike with the 4 key habits. The first one is all about your values. How can you know what to do from moment by moment? When you're in confusion, asking yourself, what do I say? What do I do? You figure that out by first knowing who you are. And this is where the values come in. Values are your non-negotiable principles, the fundamental beliefs about what is right, what matters, and how you will conduct yourself regardless of the circumstances. Values are not goals you achieve or outcomes, okay? They are internal compasses that guide your decisions when no one is watching, when it's difficult, and when there's a cost of doing the right thing.
I think it was once I did my values and boundaries and I realized like I just need to live the best version of me and focus on me. Because if I keep focusing on her, I'm just going to go back to that fawning thing, and I don't want that.
Now I'm going to show you an example of a man who has a very strong value around persistence and then one who doesn't, and I'm going to show you the results of all of that. Let's say we have 2 men. First, we're going to go over a guy that doesn't have a value of persistence or grit or stick-to-itiveness, doesn't want to fight through things. Now, before I share this, you have to know our actions are most influenced by how we identify, and our values are close to our identity, right? So when you adopt these values, you take action more consistently in accordance with them, okay? So this guy who has no persistence, let's say his wife gives him a test. The situation is that his wife hands him the divorce papers. They just show up one day. Of course, his first thought is going to be, it's over. There's nothing I can do. He will feel defeated in himself. So the actions he will take is he'll give up. He won't do the work. He'll blame his wife. He won't fight for his marriage. Of course, you know the outcome of that is that divorce is going to be on the table. Now let's juxtapose the same guy, but this time he went through the values exercises and he identified he wants to be a persistent man, a confident, persistent man who's loyal. Same man, different value, same situation. Wife hands him the papers. Instead of thinking what he thought before, this time he'll think, I am a persistent man. It's not over. He will feel, because of that thought, motivated to do something, to find something else. He will search online and find a channel like this and a video exactly like this one, and he will sign up for a call by clicking the link down below. It's a free strategy call, and all you have to do is enter in the information and make sure you're fully invested, ready to make this change, okay? But it all starts with this motivation and determination that you are persistent, that you can fight through this storm. Well, and the outcome will be like Mike's.
This is something that I really want to reinforce with you because it's what a lot of guys truly struggle with. And it's the idea that process versus outcome. And what I mean by that, you might know what I mean by that, is like a lot of guys, when they first initially start and they're in that fawning phase and they're like being the nice guy and they just need her back, they're doing these changes legitimately for her. But what I've heard from your own narrative, your own personal, voice and thoughts is that you were doing these things for yourself since the beginning. Like, I want to get back to where I was. I want to be a better man. And so from the very beginning, I heard you in your own narrative about how you are doing this for yourself, which is why you've been able to be consistent. And I think the biggest issue that a lot of guys have is that when they're in this outcome focused mode, whenever she does test, whenever she does pull away and she's in her dual mind narrative, they'll crumble because they're like, oh man, like it's not working. And then they'll give up. And it's like, well, she was right all along. She was right because you were doing it for her, right? So
Yeah, I think initially that's how I started was, oh, I'm going to do it for myself and for her. But then as we got into it, I was like, no.
Yeah.
I let go pretty quick of, well, if she divorces me, she divorces me. And I'll just be that much better for the next person.
The next skill you must develop is the idea of process versus outcome, okay? Now let me give you an example for myself of process versus outcome mindset, but around money. Okay. If you didn't know, I had an old YouTube channel called The Ascended Masculine. It was called Pinnacle of Man. And I made hundreds of self-development videos on therapy, on dating, on guys helping with porn addiction. It's where I started before I actually went into marriage advice. I also give relationship advice as I was in my private practice. Up in my private practice in the office, ending with a client on Friday at like 8 p.m. And I sat in the office till 11 p.m. at night on a Friday, overlooking the lights here in Mission Valley in San Diego, overlooking this gorge, seeing all the cars driving and thinking this will pay off. But I made hundreds of videos over 7 years and I didn't make a penny, okay? Now, could I have been so persistent with my YouTube channel that I no longer even use anymore, the old channel? Could I be so persistent if I was focused on the outcome? Absolutely not. I remember spending hours and hours on a video and it would flop. It would have no views and I didn't know how to make it my full-time thing, okay? However, I was focused on the process. I was focused on becoming a good filmmaker, an editor, a scriptwriter, a speaker. And at the time, even though I didn't know it, I was prepping myself for a higher mission that I have right now with you, helping men save their marriage. And if I didn't spend those years and years and thousands of honestly hours across 7-8 years, I wouldn't be able to convey this message so confidently to you in the way that I do that keeps you listening. And so the point of this story is that you don't know why you're going through this. And if you choose to try to better yourself just to get your wife back, she will punish you. She will know that you're not doing it for yourself. Therefore, your changes won't last. But much like Mike and many of the other men who find success in our program, if you could find a reason why for yourself, that you want to be a better man, you want to be the best version of yourself, you want people to respect, admire you, to have charisma, to be attractive towards others. If you make that your goal, she will notice. And that's choosing the process over the outcome. Because let me tell you, when you are focused on the outcome, you are desperate and needy. You seek validation. You're impatient. You're rushed. You're inconsistent. And she notices all of that just in the way you carry yourself. It's not even the words you're saying. And this is why it's so important to adopt the third skill, which is a mindset, the Stockdale Paradox.
You can expect some things to happen, just not the process of how it happens.
Yep.
I saw that start to happen after weeks. So trust the Stockdale Paradox. Things will happen, not in the way that you always think, because things did happen in ways I never thought would happen. And it was awesome to just kind of watch it happen. By not trying to control the outcome, I can enjoy the ride more.
If you want the blueprint, if you want proven actions, this is it. You must have utter certainty, even make it delusional, that you're going to get your wife back. Of course you are. There is no doubt in your mind, and you're not in a rush to do so. Now, the fourth and final skill is one I spoke with Mike about, which a lot of men overlook. However, it is extremely important, and that is removing resentment. Now, how can forgiving your wife and removing all this resentment make you have a stronger frame? Well, think of it like this through a metaphor. Imagine that you are rebuilding a house. That house represents who you are as a man. Now, she has to feel safe in that home, doesn't she? She has to love the way the home looks. It has to feel like it's stable, okay? However, because you let yourself go in a lot of ways, you've gotten complacent. There's been maybe trauma you never looked at that's been corrosive, eating away at the foundation, right? These termites, whatever it is, however you want to label it, your foundation has cracks in it. Okay, it does. And she's going to give you those emotional storms. She wants to test the stability of your relationship like we already talked about. She needs to feel your strength. Now, if you have resentment or unhealed wounds, you're going to fall apart from a simple storm, okay? That wolf is going to blow your house down faster than a house of straw. It really is. However, much like Mike, if you can go into understanding these past traumas, these reasons why you didn't feel good enough, like I said from the very beginning of the video, and you make yourself rock solid in who you are unfazable, she will feel safer than she's ever felt with you. Just imagine waking up one day. Just imagine this for a second. Please indulge me. You wake up next to her. She looks over at you and smiles. She rubs you, says she loves you so much, and just expresses so much gratitude. She says, thank you for sticking to this. Thank you for becoming a better man. Okay? That moment is possible for you. But much like Mike, you have to believe it's so, and you have to find a higher reason why other than getting her back for why you want that moment to be. Okay? Here's the video on tests that I talked about. Here's another success story that I highly recommend you check out. Click the link down below to set up a free strategy call with one of our marriage evaluators. Make sure you're fully committed. We're only going to take a call if you're fully committed to making a change. Much love to you. I'll see you in the next one.